Libya, or of Tripoli, it I I didn't know why that was that strange. Are there never camels walking in Tripoli? Is it a very unusual occurrence?
Well, Jason, it would be like I'm in New York.
Yeah, it's a
Would
city,
it?
two
It's a
million people.
city. It's a city with roads just like Houston or Dallas or anywhere else.
Yeah.
But it's
And
closer to
this
the
is a
desert
fluke.
than New York.
Yeah,
Yeah,
these were
yeah.
brought back from Australia to be released, I guess, in the desert someplace, or why it went in Tripoli, Port of Tripoli, I don't know, but
The guy that bought him was from Zawiya. That's why they
okay.
were going to Zawiya. That Australia had a big problem with their fires, and they had a whole
Yeah,
bunch of camels they were just going to kill. They couldn't water them, they couldn't feed them. So people were buying them. This guy bought 3,000 of them to bring into Libya
it's a
because
lot of
Libya is a
camels.
good place for camels. A lot of camels live there.
Camels are worth more money than Holsteins, big milk producing cows.
Huh.
They're very, very valuable.
And there are milking camels.
Yeah.
They have camel
Right.
milk. People drink it in
Well,
Libya.
I imagine
So
there's no place to really raise cattle in the desert there. I mean, you've got no grass and no water.
well,
Yeah.
there's different areas. Like Bani Walid is green. There's a green mountain area. They have some areas that they do raise cattle and they raise milk cows.
Yeah, the
Dairy cows.
black tribes have a big dairy industry. Used to before NATO came in and blew them up.
Yeah,
But
down toward going towards Bani Walid.
yeah,
So there's a lot of desert, but there's also places to grow.
huge citrus.
Yeah, and date palms.
Hmm.
Hmm. Well, it's a lot of things that people don't know about Libya, and I think it's one of the main reasons why people enjoy watching Unseen Libya with you guys every week. It's coming up in just less than 30 minutes. People can enjoy the sponsor exclusive show on patreon.com/James and JoAnne Moriarty, patreon.com/crowdsource the truth, and subscribestar.com/crowdsource the truth. We've kind of settled into a format lately where JoAnne, you're assembling sort of the week's news on Libya from regular Libyan news websites that you visit, but really more importantly, from your firsthand sources on the ground in the tribes. They're giving you public statements that they want you to deliver to the people of the world, right?
Right,
That's correct.
right. They don't have many sources that are honest that they trust. There's very few sources. Al Arabiya and Al Jazeera and stuff are all
Criminal.
they all cause the problem. They all lie, so they don't talk to them. They don't give them information. There are some people on the ground there that try to put out stuff and their own blogs and their own stuff. There's a couple media sources. Libyan Express is called one that's a bad source. That's run by the rats, by the militias.
Right.
They put out a bunch of phony propaganda. So you have to be careful what you read.
We also try to buffer all the lies that are put out by the mainstream media. That's a full time job because they never tell the truth about anything. They keep forcing a different new agenda every time you turn around. And so we, of course, are bringing forward proof of what they're doing. We try to explain what they're doing in relationship to Libya and from our history as bankers and stuff like that. And so there's a whole lot of information about the advances of the Libyan army. And now the bad guys in Libya are so near the edge, near their last days, that they're beginning to fight with each other. They're blaming each other for their demise, and the phony leaders that are supposed to be, the Libyan government, the UN and NATO appointed phony government. They're now trying to play with the devil to get anybody to come in there and support them. So
We're gonna talk about that on our show, and
Mhm.
Jimmy's gonna talk about the Dry Baltic Index, and we're gonna talk about some other legal things. We're gonna, we bounce around sometimes about the world economy and the U.S. legal system and some other things.
I think people really appreciated Jimmy's insights into the economy because they weren't presented in the traditional way where it's somebody who's like wearing a shirt that costs more than your house and talking about all these lofty indices and things like that. Jimmy was talking about some indices that I've never heard of, but make a lot of sense, like how many things are being shipped, the raw goods, used trucks, things like that. And I think for the average person, that sort of thing makes sense. I mean, we can hear about how billionaires are doing leverage this and that, and all kinds of fancy things that most of us don't even know what they are. But when the rubber meets the road, if trucks aren't filled with goods and raw materials moving places to construct things, it seems like an indication that things are stalled.
Yeah, that's the truth. No matter what the media lies about, those are lies they can't alter, and so those are real good indices. And so if people will go and do their own, after I give you the information, I hope everybody goes and digs into it, because it's really important that we all understand what dire straits we're in, and make the preparations for yourself and your families, because it's real important. Because really and truly, we don't have anybody in DC taking care of us. We all are having to take care of ourselves. So, we need to really pay attention to what's going on and open up your eyes, use your discernment. There's a lot of information we'll provide you, but we really hope everybody goes out and don't take what I say as gospel. Go out and research this, and you'll find that these indicators are really valuable. And like a friend of mine, he's a big time stock and bond trader, and I asked him, I said, how can you continue to take the money from these poor people and put it into the markets? And he said, look, as long as I can make money on one side or the other, he said, I'm going to continue to do this. But he said, let me tell you something. I've always got myself located very near the door.
Ooh.
So he's ready to bail out.
So he knows
anytime.
He's ripping everybody off, and he's not really too afraid of it. Wow. Well, we titled this episode a little bit of a humorous kind of a way, these camels walking around the street. It's somewhat suggestive of something possibly slightly ridiculous. But the thing that I wanted to point out that's really very interesting is that, we look each week at these various news stories, and I always find it interesting to see what Google is returning when we search for news. Camels in Tripoli, we got Reuters, The Independent, Sydney Morning Herald, The National, Bloomberg, Sky News, a lot of big outlets reporting on this. It seems like they're more concerned with 3,000 camels than they are with some of the other major stories that you've told us about that seem to get no coverage whatsoever.
Well, this is something that is of human interest. It's novel. And so, they can tell this story without having to lie about it.
Right. Yeah, the camels aren't going to get into a political uproar here. It is a lot of camels, I have to say. It's an odd sight to behold. So these camels came all the way from Australia to Libya. And what happened? I noticed one of these articles said that they came under artillery fire. That's not good for a camel.
What happened is they came into the Tripoli port because the man who bought them was in Zawiya, and that's a suburb of Tripoli. Australia, because of all their fires, was having trouble with all the camels in Australia. They have deserts there too. And the camels were encroaching into neighborhoods, apparently, to try to find food and water. And they were going to kill a bunch of camels. That's what they were going to do. And the people that lived in the desert regions of Africa and Middle East and stuff heard about this, and apparently are purchasing a lot of these camels. And
because they're tame. A tame camel's worth thousands of dollars.
Anyway, so this guy bought 3,000 of them and brought them into Tripoli. He was going to have them shipped to Zawiya, but there was no transport vehicles available, so he decided to herd them through Tripoli to Zawiya.
Yeah.
They left the port because the port was under attack. The Turkish army they had arrived in a ship there with weapons and with their army, and the Libyan National Army attacked them. And so the guy the ship captain and the guy who had the camels said, get them out of the port. We don't know what's going to happen there. So that's why they were removed from the port so quickly. But the Libyans like this. They like to see the camels in the street. For them, it's a good omen.
It's $165 million worth of camels, according to Faisal's Camel Index here.
Yeah, it's a lot of camels.
$165 million this guy spent on camels? He probably got a discount on the burned out Australian camels, right?
Yeah, he probably did.
A milking camel is worth a lot of money. The problem with camels is they're such a wild animal that to have one tame enough where you can milk it regularly, to make a profit center out of it, takes a lot of work. And so somebody having the ability to buy tame camels, it's a huge
And
deal.
camel's milk is very, very healthy.
Yeah.
I think I've eaten a camel. Is that possible? Can you eat a camel? I think I've eaten it.
Yeah,
somewhere.
they eat camels in North Africa and the Middle East. They eat camel meat.
But you want to eat the young camel, because when they get to be older, full size, that meat's real tough.
Larry Simpson used to smoke camels. I don't know if that's the same kind of camel.
There you go. That's right. That's right.
My grandfather did too.
But where they get the product that they roll into a cigarette, I wouldn't want to touch it.
Yeah, I'm sure not. So, but on a serious note, there's a couple things that we're going to be talking about today. You've got these basically decrees, right, from the tribes. They've given you specific statements they'd like you to read.
Yes, there's the leader of all the southern tribes sent a message to the interior minister of the Muslim Brotherhood illegitimate government in Tripoli, because he invited the United States to open a base without authority, without anything, in Libya. And so the southern tribes responded immediately, and they sent us their response. They said, please publish this. So
if you remember the video we had in the prison where all those prisoners were being released, right? This sheikh from the southern tribes was right there with us. We know him very well. He's very distinctive outfit, different from the other Libyans. Really a nice guy, and he asked we send this out to the media because it's a declaration of where all of Libya declares invalid the phony UN NATO government in Tripoli. It was never validated. They never followed the conditions by which it was set in there, and so all that's well defined.
They have no authority to make agreements or treaties with any foreign countries. They cannot affect the sovereignty of Libya. There's all kinds of restrictions, and they just continue on. Yeah, And
well, it's absolutely outrageous. But we've heard virtually nothing about it in the United States. If people aren't watching Unseen Libya and listening to the information that you two have been bringing forward every week here on Monday nights. And we're going to be starting in just about 15 minutes over on Patreon and Subscribestar. So for people who are still coming into the video over here, they've got some time to join us. They're not going to hear these statements anywhere else. And of course, we have to do it outside of YouTube and all these kind of mainstream social media channels because they love to remove content that you put on YouTube, on Facebook. And then these accounts that we've spent so many years building up just get decimated. So we have to be doing this in the way that we're doing it to the subscription-only, sponsor-exclusive group of people who have opted in to seeing this kind of information. And it's extremely important, I think, for people to see because, as you said, Jimmy, people need to use their discernment. And I mean, that comes in to play also when we're just looking at how many articles about camels walking down the street Google is allowing us to have, and how few articles it points us to about some of these other more important topics that we speak about each week. I want people to use their discernment when they think about that. I get infrequent messages from people who implore us to put this information out, as they put it, for free. Well, it's not free. We've basically all sold to Google our right to choose what we get to hear. Google now controls that, so you've paid quite a heavy price for free.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Well, Jason, there is so much information about Libya that we really could run a 3 or 4 hour show. JoAnne compiled, I don't know, she cut back the number of documents by 2/3. But there's so much information about what's really happening, how all the different conflicts are taking place, so much political intrigue on both sides and from outside influences. But we're going to cover a lot of that, and there's a lot of information. We hope everybody reads it after the fact because we will only be able to cover so much. But it's a lot of very, very important information, and it's pertinent to what's going around in the rest of the world. Absolutely. So Libya is really being a focal point for Russia and China and all the rest of them. And there was a G20 meeting. I think it finished yesterday. It was in the Indonesia, Malaysia, I think, area. And China, United States, and Russia were not invited.
Wow.
And one of the IMF reports I've got JoAnne signed up as a commentator for 2 of the IMF sites, and they said that they were one of the subjects they were dealing with is the world economies without the U.S. dollar.
Wow. Now, wait a minute. That wasn't the G20 because that's in Riyadh in September.
No, this just happened. This just happened.
Well, it wasn't the G20 then.
How do we find it?
It was called the G20, but it did not have Russia, China, and the United States in it. So it was not really a real G20, but it may have been a G17, if you would.
Huh. Well,
this just happened.
Yeah, I'm looking for it here. Trump and Xi agree. Yeah, it's all going back to the previous G20.
No,
that's interesting.
Yeah. When you have the 3 big players not present, and the IMF, the reports we get from them are their dialogue, some of their discussion groups and stuff that JoAnne's a member of, And so we get the report from those discussion groups, and it was real interesting. One of the discussions they were having is world economies without the U.S. dollar. Hello?
Yeah.
You can find it.
I'm just looking for it real quick here. U.S. dollar is the closest thing we've had to a global currency. Hard to find, but that's something definitely.
Look at the IMF. Look at the IMF news.
It's just for the discussion groups.
Oh.
I'll have to go pull it off my computer.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll look into that. Yeah, we'll get into that when we get to the main show. But yeah, we're going to be. I think it's important to remind people you guys do a tremendous amount of work in preparing for these shows each week. And some of the articles that we're going to discuss do appear later on LibyanWarTheTruth.com. That's Jimmy and JoAnne's free website. People can go there to learn more about the ordeal that they survived when they escaped from Al-Qaeda, the only known people to have done that. And of course, you can order their Escape from Al-Qaeda DVD. This contains photographs and videos and documents that Jimmy and JoAnne either took themselves or collected from people in the tribes. The DVD is $15, and people who sponsor Jimmy and JoAnne are going to get free shipping. So all you need to do is go over to patreon.com/James and JoAnne Moriarty, become a sponsor for any dollar amount, and send an email to Jimmy and JoAnne. They're going to make sure you get the DVD, and you don't pay shipping for it. It's quite a deal. So Jimmy and JoAnne, we're about to head over to Patreon and Subscribestar. Anything quick before we go?
No, lots and lots of information. I think everybody will be. I think they will find a plethora of information that they'll be able to.
We'll talk a little bit about Syria too, just a little bit.
Right.
Have a video.
We got to get Senator Black back in the loop at some point soon.
We can. That's true.
Yeah.
We'll do that in the future. So I hope everybody watching will join us on Patreon and Subscribestar. We'll be there in just 10 minutes, so join us, and we'll see everybody there. Thanks for watching.